if someone is a bad driver, getting a new car isn't going to fix that problem, right?
Our team and any of the projects we worked on, we not always, but very, very seldom have issues with the HubSpot API. It's typically the other system that we're trying to integrate.
Engineering team at HubSpot is fully autonomous and authorized to ship code whenever they want. And so HubSpot gets updates literally every day.
What's one thing you believe businesses are not paying enough attention to right now that will be critical in the next 5 years?
Everybody's talking about AI. I even talked about AI I think people are not thinking enough about just good old-fashioned human intelligence, right?
Hey there, welcome to the second episode of Pulse. Today we've got Kyle Jepson joining us. Kyle is a maestro in everything to do with HubSpot. He's the principal marketing evangelist at HubSpot Academy and an absolute expert on all things HubSpot. Kyle's a fountain of knowledge on HubSpot features, and he's a master at transforming how businesses engage with their customers. Very, very knowledgeable around all things HubSpot. I've been following your content for quite a while, Kyle, so excited to have you on for the second episode. Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Good. Well, for anyone that doesn't follow your content and doesn't know who you are and what you do at HubSpot, give us a bit of a background and give the listeners a bit of background about who you are and what you do.
Sure. So at HubSpot, we have a sort of educational branch called HubSpot Academy. We make a lot of HubSpot-focused training videos and then also just general marketing, sales, and customer service education. And I joined HubSpot Academy in 2016. I've been there a while. But about a year ago, I transitioned from making these long-form online courses to doing a lot more short-form things like quick tip videos on social media and hour-long webinars on a weekly basis. And that's been going really well. And the folks at HubSpot Academy were kind enough to turn this thing I started as an experiment I was just doing for fun into my full-time job. So that's the evangelist role was invented, and I'm the first and only evangelist here, and it's still kind of an experiment, but so far so good.
Awesome. Yeah, well, I've followed your content for quite a while. We've talked a few times and gone back and forth on comments and all sorts of things I post, etc. But really impressive that the content you're putting out. I want to get into a bit more of HubSpot and the ecosystem of HubSpot from your perspective, and kind of touch off on the evolution of HubSpot. I was first introduced to HubSpot back in inbound in 2016, actually. Is really when I knew a bit about it before then, but I went with Jerry, one of the partners here at Intuji. I went with him to inbound 2016 with some others as well, and that was when I really got kind of the inside knowledge, I suppose, around HubSpot and inbound in general, and was quite impactful into what we do today as a business and kind of what we do ourselves internally. But the product itself has massively grown even since then, since 2016. I think, if I remember just correctly, you mentioned you joined HubSpot in 2016. So is that correct?
Well, I joined HubSpot Academy in 2016. I actually joined HubSpot middle of 2015 as a customer support rep. Okay,
interesting. Okay, so when you moved over to the HubSpot Academy side of things was when I was first introduced to it. So give us, you've obviously been there for a long time, and the product has dramatically changed in that period of time. But kind of give us an overview of where HubSpot started as more of a product and where it's going to, where it is now, and then where it's going to in the next couple of years.
Yeah, happy to do that. So I joined, like I said, middle of 2015. Inbound is you've mentioned a couple times, it's our annual big event. It happens usually in September of every year. And in inbound of 2014, so just about 6 months before I joined the company, HubSpot announced we're launching a CRM. Prior to that, HubSpot had always just been marketing tools. The company started in 2006, very much focused on this idea of inbound marketing, and very much focused on providing a product to smaller size businesses. The whole thought was, in a world of Google searches and SEO, small businesses can compete kind of toe-to-toe with big enterprises, and HubSpot wanted to be the tool set that enabled small businesses to compete on a larger scale. on a marketing front. And for a long time, 2006 to 2014, that's all we did. But we found a lot of these small businesses we were helping didn't have a CRM at all. They were using spreadsheets or just notepads on their desk,
Yeah.
And so we launched a CRM and we made it free. And the idea was that would kind of support our marketing product. But as the CRM system grew up and as we developed it and as we added paid sales tools, we found there was a lot of demand for a robust and affordable CRM that was built for small and mid-sized businesses. And so we've really been investing in that for a long time. And since then, we've added customer service tools and tools focused on operation folks. And more recently, we've added some commerce tools that do payment processing kinds of things. And HubSpot has expanded to be this suite, this platform of tools that's meant to let a small or mid-sized business, and we're raising the definition of that all the time, have their entire, we call it the front office in there. Anyone who is facing and interfacing with customers can work inside of HubSpot. And the promise is that we built this all from scratch, right? It's been carefully crafted to be a single unified system. The standard CRM playbook of acquiring different companies and kind of cobbling them together is not what we've done. We've built it all as a holistic system. And so if you're using our marketing tools and you start using our sales tools and then you add on our service tools, it's all seamlessly interconnected. It's one big system. And that's been going really well. And then a big turning point, probably, 2018 or 2019, HubSpot itself moved on to HubSpot. We had been a Salesforce customer, but we were hearing from a lot of customers there was this perception that you can grow out of HubSpot, and even HubSpot doesn't use HubSpot. If you're going to be a big international company, you've got to use Salesforce. And so we moved on to HubSpot for probably 5 or 6 years now. We have been our own biggest customer, and HubSpot works great for HubSpot. We have 8,000 employees. We're international. We have a huge sales team, a huge marketing organization, and we initially felt the pain, right? Oh, wow. Yeah, maybe this system isn't built for a company that's quite as big as us. Yeah. But that has really pushed us to make it enterprise grade. And it supports us fine now. And we invite any company who's interested to come give HubSpot a try because we think it'll meet your needs pretty well.
Yeah, definitely. And that's what I wanted to get into a bit more in depth in this episode, was especially around the enterprise size or side of things. Was definitely a shift I've seen from my perspective since being a HubSpot partner and working and being really invested in HubSpot. We use HubSpot ourselves, not just a partner, but we use HubSpot ourselves and do a lot in there. Could do a lot more as well, but do a lot in there. And one of the things I've seen is a shift to more flexibility, and also at the same time introducing flexibility for enterprise, right? Not just flexibility around, creating your own custom fields and things like that there for smaller businesses, etc. I've been there for a long time, right? But we're now seeing a big shift, I feel, to where HubSpot is kind of aiming its product at those larger enterprises. Not that it's necessarily hurting the smaller businesses or the medium businesses, because a lot of those what were, let's say, enterprise tier things or professional are actually getting pushed down plans, right? Which is quite interesting. But I just wanted to touch off on where HubSpot's future's at, and kind of specifically what the focus is for enterprise.
Yeah, I think you got it exactly right in mentioning the flexibility piece. When HubSpot first started, I mentioned it was tied up in this concept of inbound marketing, which is still our foundational philosophy. HubSpot is an opinionated platform. We believe there is a right way to do business in the modern era. But early on, we were maybe overly prescriptive, right? We had these are the objects you need. These are the tools you need, and they work the way they need to work. And as we started moving up market and having larger, more sophisticated customers, we quickly found that big, complex companies know what they need better than we do, right? Yeah. And the best way we can serve them is by making our platform flexible in the way you've described. And I think the first big milestone there back in 2018 was when we introduced custom objects. We recognized, okay, contacts, companies, deals, tickets, these are great. Everybody needs those. But if you're doing deliveries or if you're managing a portfolio of real estate properties, you need additional custom defined objects to represent those things. And so we gave people that ability. And since then, we've introduced the ability to create, custom workflow actions. Workflows is our automation engine. And you can now, if you know Python or JavaScript, you can create an action in our automation system that does literally anything you want it to do. And we've been leaning into custom events and custom this and custom that. Basically, the promise of HubSpot is we're going to offer you really smart defaults. And if you are a small business, or if you're a startup, or if your business model is fairly straightforward, those defaults are going to work great for you. It's going to help you get up and running really quickly. It's going to make it really easy to get HubSpot off the ground. And that's awesome. But if you are an established company and you do business in a particular way, and you need your CRM and your marketing tools and your customer service tools to be malleable so you can mold them to that business model, HubSpot can do that now. Basically, any part of HubSpot you're using, it's pretty easy to get under the hood and tinker around with the mechanics and make it match your system of business. And that has turned out to be the key to getting enterprise organizations to take HubSpot seriously. They want that customizability.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I wanted to get your thoughts on kind of where you see kind of enterprise customer experience and how enterprise businesses can leverage some more like the features within like HubSpot's platforms and the different hubs as to personalizing and revolutionizing their customer experience. Like some of the things we've done are some deep data integrations, custom integrations between HubSpot and other systems, ERPs, websites, etc., with custom events and tracking, which are firing out emails or sequences, whether or not that's giving more insight into essentially a holistic view of the entire customer history within the CRM, right, across marketing, sales, etc. But bringing in external sources, whether that is a website, an app, all sorts of things, whatever it is, basically bringing that in. But what are your thoughts on that, and how some of those larger businesses can leverage that?
Yeah, so I think HubSpot, one thing I think is really smart about a decision that the leaders of HubSpot made is we have tools for all kinds of things. You mentioned a bunch, right? We have email sequences. We have a CMS for building a website. We have calendar scheduling stuff. We have live chat. We have basically all the tools you would need in your front office, calling and call recording and all this stuff. But we recognize too, maybe you have a tool you already like, or maybe you have a tool that does it better than we do. And we want to provide all these tools inside of HubSpot so that you don't have to go shopping around, right? Again, if you're a small business, or if you're a startup, and we're your first system of record, we want to give you all the tools you need so you don't have to spend a lot of time shopping around and integrating things together. But if you have those tools, or if you prefer those tools, we want to make it as easy as possible for you to integrate those in. So HubSpot can still be your system of record, but you can use the tools that you have decided are best. And so we have invested heavily in creating this ecosystem of apps and making it as simple as possible to connect things together. One thing I think is really powerful is we have this tool called Data Sync, which is a real-time two-way integration between HubSpot and a number of other systems. I haven't looked recently, but well over 100. And this real-time two-way sync is really powerful because if you connect HubSpot to one of those systems, anything updated in that external system is going to update HubSpot. Anything updated in HubSpot is going to update that other system, and it happens in real time. And where the real power of that comes in is HubSpot also has a lot of tools that will clean and standardize your data, fix your capitalization, remove HTML characters, whatever it is. But because you have that real-time sync working at the same time, HubSpot will pull in all the data from all those connected systems. It'll clean it up, and then it'll sync it back to those systems. So not only is HubSpot acting as the hub of your tech stack, but it's also cleaning and improving the data in all those external systems. Yeah. So just by connecting, Microsoft Dynamics or Square or whatever that system is to HubSpot, the data in that external system improves, which is going to help you as a company provide a better experience to your customers. You're going to have consistent data across your whole tech stack. And of course, we would love it if HubSpot was the only tool you used for everything. And if you did that, certainly marketing and sales and customer service are all working off the same customer record and can unify and harmonize and coordinate their efforts. But if you pull in these external systems, we don't want that experience for your customer to get degraded at all. So we're doing everything we can to keep everything in sync and everything working with good data, so that marketing can be working in whatever tools they're working in, and sales can be working in whatever tools they're working in, and customer service can be working in whatever tools they're working in. But everybody is seeing the same data. Everybody, if they make an update or take an action, it's visible to everyone else, so that nobody's stumbling over each other, and especially no customers are getting left behind in the gaps between the teams.
Yeah, definitely. What do you think some of the most powerful features are? Well, probably before we get into that actually, but one thing that's coming to my mind now is what are some of the most innovative use cases, I suppose, you've seen within HubSpot, or how businesses have, I suppose, improved that customer experience or tailored a certain experience. Have you seen any of those across maybe some training videos or something like that there, where you've discussed in different workshops, etc., or anything like that there? Or I know you're not working on the customer enablement side and working with them, but
right.
any innovative
I will
things?
say, yeah, just in general, the things I hear customers saying are a lot around this visibility piece that I've mentioned, right? If you can get marketing and sales and customer service all working in the same system of record, then I think we've all experienced as consumers. You have a conversation with someone, I don't know, maybe you're getting a new credit card or bank account or whatever, and the person you talk to first, they need your name, they need your phone number, they need your email address, they write it all down. And then the next time you call in, now you're a customer, they start all over, right? What's your name?
Yeah.
What's your phone number? What's your email address? Right? And HubSpot is trying to fix that, right? You just have to tell the company the first time you call in who you are, and then forever after they know that, right? And even if you're not talking to the same person you talked to last time, the system is organized and coherent and cohesive enough that they can find that information. And so cutting down a lot on the work you're asking your customers to do to be your customer, and the efficiency that then gives your internal teams is a lot of the success I hear around people adopting HubSpot when they've moved there from other systems.
Yeah, totally agree. It's what we see just in real world examples, if that makes sense, when we're implementing it or working with clients, etc. And there's a few key things, which is one of them is obviously the whole seeing the holistic view of the customer. And that comes back to a successful implementation, and ensuring that the implementation is done correctly, right? Because if the data's bad or the structure's bad, it's going to be bad, right? So we need to make sure it's obviously set up right. But when that is the case, and if you look at an ideal world and you do say, yeah, we do have a holistic view of the customer, we do have every single piece of information, across sales, marketing, and service, the opportunities are endless, right?
Yeah.
Certain one innovative use case we've seen and implemented before is if certain actions are met, so maybe a spend requirement or whatever it is, a certain criteria are met, we trigger a gift card to be sent through the API, right, with the custom action.
Nice.
And some people may say, oh, it's gimmicky, or it's very simple, but yet that's the point of it is that whatever you can imagine at that point, if you've got the data there, we can do what we want with it. That's the main point. If the data's in there, it's clean, it's structured properly, we can do whatever we want. We can use workflows to do stuff within HubSpot. We can do workflows to trigger custom actions, which can do things outside of HubSpot. But it's just so powerful. And I want to get back to just on this is about the data and data sync, right? And our experience with that as well. Obviously, data sync is very powerful, and it's a great part of the HubSpot product, but especially when we're referring to enterprise level integrations, this is something we come across a lot, is that the out of the box integrations are a good start. But when you come, it's a bit like you're talking about earlier, when it comes to, being malleable and enterprises having their very specific way of doing things, very often we need to build out custom integrations that enable us, to do whatever we want. But the HubSpot API, again, is developer first, right? Which is very,
Yeah.
very, very important, and something that I know our team, and any of the projects we worked on, we not always, but very, very seldom have issues with the HubSpot API, right? It's typically the other system that we're trying to
Yeah.
integrate, and that is something, I suppose. Is that in your area? Do you do a lot around that, or do you have any communication with who's maintaining that? I'd be interested to hear, and how much HubSpot itself actually puts on that. Are you familiar with that internally, or isn't?
Yeah, so I mean, I will lead by saying I'm not a developer, and anyone who's listening to this podcast will hear the words I'm about to say and be like, yeah, this guy's not a developer. But we like I said, in the same way we have really pushed to have an ecosystem of apps that you can install and integrations that are just ready to go. We have done our best to expose the necessary APIs and give really thorough documentation on them. I actually, as a non-developer, find HubSpot's API documentation really enjoyable to read because we have little bits of test code that you can just run right on the page, right? And so for me as a person who doesn't really know how to write code, if I ever find myself in a situation where I think, oh, it'd be really handy if I could use an API, I can usually do whatever I need just right from the developer doc, which is really powerful. But I mean, we in recent years, we've been really making strides to make HubSpot. I like how you described it, developer first. We're trying to make it as easy and enjoyable and empowering for developers as possible. We've really invested not just in documentation, but in things like a local development. This is a part where my vocabulary is not great, but if you're a website developer, you can do stuff locally on your machine and like see how the website looks before you push it to your live environment. And these kinds of things that make it give developers more confidence working in HubSpot and trying things out. We've made huge strides in that recently, and we're seeing a really great uptake out in the ecosystem. There are people who identify as HubSpot developers and are building their careers doing this because we are trying so hard to give them the tools they need to have that confidence.
Yeah, I totally agree. I want to change direction a bit here and focus on something that we see a lot, and actually something I've personally said to many people when discussing HubSpot, talking about HubSpot, but I would be interested in your thoughts on this, but essentially around one of the biggest reasons I've ever mentioned and still do to this day, which is credit to yourself and the team at HubSpot Academy, but is a lot of when people are looking at implementing a new tech stack or a new system or piece of tech, whatever we want to call it, they often fail to look at the adoption internally as a team, right? They often fail to consider that, like, oh, it's like shiny new object kind of thing, and we're so excited about it. It's got all these features. We want to jump in. It's amazing, but they don't look at how it's going to impact their team and how they're going to actually implement it. And one of the key differentiators, I think personally, we do as a company feel about HubSpot is the academy, right? Is that yes, okay, you have to work with an implementation partner, right? Or you have to work with an accredited partner or an agency or HubSpot to implement HubSpot and basically make sure you get it right. But that's not the end of it. That's like the start. That's the very beginning. We're just at 0% at that point. And what do you see? Like, how do you see that with HubSpot Academy and what you're doing? I want to get away from, not that I don't want to discuss it, but I want to, I suppose, get more of what you do day to day here around just your role in HubSpot Academy and how you see that impacting the actual adoption of HubSpot in a broader sense, and then kind of what the future is for HubSpot Academy and training in general as well.
Yeah. So HubSpot Academy, if anyone listening is not familiar with HubSpot Academy, even if you're not a HubSpot customer, just go check it out. Go Google HubSpot Academy or go to academy.hubspot.com. And all the courses are free. You don't have to be a HubSpot customer to access these things. And so if you are thinking about moving to HubSpot, or if you just want to upskill a little bit in marketing or sales or customer service, check it out. They're all free and they're high quality and they're available in multiple languages. These online courses we provide are just out there as a service to the world. And so if you are wondering what kind of training is available in a HubSpot environment, you don't have to wait. You don't have to wonder you can just go take some courses now and see what you think and give us some feedback. But HubSpot Academy has been around, I think, since 2012. More than 10 years now, we've been creating and updating and translating and localizing this content to give people as much educational power as possible. And we see a lot of folks posting online, sometimes joking, but I think also serious, that like, I learned more about revenue operations in HubSpot Academy's revenue operations course than I learned in my MBA program or whatever it is. And we're offering this stuff for free. And so I think that's a very powerful point in favor of all the things you're talking about, adoption and retention. We find that people who take HubSpot Academy courses are just happier as HubSpot customers. They seem very effective pieces of education. As far as your question about what's next, HubSpot Academy historically has been these full online courses, right? It's going to take, it's a few hours of content. It's probably going to take you a couple of days to get through. At the end, you're going to take a lengthy examination. You're going to be awarded a certification. That has been our standard offering for a long time, and it will continue to be so. But we see what's happening in the world. People want short form content, right? Not everyone has the luxury of being able to take some time off work or out of their evening to sit down for a couple of hours to improve themselves professionally, right? Some people just don't have that kind of bandwidth. And so this year, and I think moving forward, we're really going to be experimenting more with what does it mean for content to be shorter? What does it mean for it to be more timely, right? Can HubSpot Academy provide education that is about current events, right? Things that are happening with AI, recent developments in social media, or how the marketing or sales landscape is changing, right? If we could put out, instead of an 8-hour course 4 times a year, if we could put out a short little, 5-minute lesson every week or two, that would really enable us to give a different kind of education and reach a different kind of learner. And as I kind of mentioned at the top, I've been experimenting with this. It's been my job for a year, but since 2020, I've been publishing short daily videos on LinkedIn and other social media platforms. Just, hey, did you know you could do this in HubSpot? Hey, did you know you could do that in HubSpot? And for the last couple of years, I've been doing this weekly webinar where it's just like, here's 1 hour, and we're going to go deep on one HubSpot tool, right? And people really like it. Uptake has been really, really enthusiastic. And so I think you're going to see HubSpot Academy not in any way reducing the amount of highly produced, deep, long form educational content that it has been creating. But I think you're going to see us, in addition to that, creating a lot more education in different formats, shorter formats, to make it more digestible, more accessible, and easier for people to learn from.
Interesting. I like that. What do you think is some of the most criminally underrated features within HubSpot, underexplored, like where people, aren't aware of it, right? Like, what do you see from your own content or your own feedback, the webinars and things where people just like, wow, I did not know that existed, or I didn't know I could do that?
Sure. I didn't know I could do that in HubSpot is a thing I think every HubSpot customer says at one point, because HubSpot changes really rapidly. We're not like a lot of software companies where you have sprints every 6 weeks or like a quarterly or annual release schedule. Every engineering team at HubSpot is fully autonomous and authorized to ship code whenever they want. And so HubSpot gets updates literally every day. There are new features, and staying on top of that is difficult. That's actually how I started building my LinkedIn following, is just telling people, hey, here's today's updates, right? But as far as features that have been around for a while that I criminally underrated, I like that phrasing. I love the playbooks tool. It's in Sales Hub and Service Hub. It's this tool where you can give your reps, whether they're in sales or service, this sort of interactive script, right? You can say, here are the questions you need to ask, and it has buttons so they can push the answers they get as they're talking to a person. And you can have them, one playbook linked to another playbook, and you can have buttons to create records and things. You can just give your customer-facing rep, whatever role they're in, this single thing to look at that will guide them through whatever conversation they're having. I think they're so powerful and so easy to use. And I think very few teams are taking advantage of that.
Yeah, I agree.
I
Us
I want
included.
every HubSpot customer to go explore the playbooks tool.
Yeah, no, us included with that. It's super powerful. And again, it just comes down to putting aside the time, working with the teams, extract the information, working out, setting up the playbooks, and just making sure it's done properly. But there's again, there's training on it. There's information on how to do it, how to set them up, and what you can do. Anything else aside from playbooks? Any other thing? What's the second thing you see? Obviously, playbooks is a big one, but what else do you hear often that people just aren't using properly, or they don't even know about it?
Yeah. I think more and more HubSpot has standard reports for almost everything any of our customers could ever need. You can certainly build custom reports, and like we're saying, enterprise companies are always going to have to, right? They're going to have some reporting, but HubSpot has this enormous library of reports that are just ready to go, no setup at all. All you have to do is search through the list, find the one you want, and put it on a dashboard, and that's it. There's literally zero setup required, and we're adding new ones all the time. And I think most people just don't know they're there. And so spending some time exploring what we have in there, I think is really helpful. There for a long time, for reasons that are totally unclear to me, HubSpot had its standard reports separated into two categories. There were the reports, and then there were the analytics tools, which were also reports, but for some reason it's a separate part. And I think a lot of people weren't finding those. There were sales analytics with these really deep sales reports, and website analytics with like traffic reports and things. And because they were tucked away in a different location, people didn't find them. Last year, we merged that all together. So now if you just go to the reporting section of HubSpot, all those reports are in there together. You can find all of them. And I think you'd be surprised, you being listeners, not you being Julian. You probably know. But I think a lot of people listening would be surprised at the depth of reporting that's available 100%. From just standard prefabricated reports that don't require any customization at all.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think personally what I see it comes down to, and what we're discussing here is that, and I say this from experience of working with a lot of companies implementing it, but then also just ourselves, like we actually use it. But it's a lot of, I've just got to do this. I've got to get the data in there, and there's too much of doing and not enough reflecting. And how do we improve this process, right? It's a lot of like, okay, it's set up 80% of the way, right? And so, I can't be bothered spending the time doing, I know it's going to help me. Not, I can't be bothered. It's probably not the right way to put it, but it's like, I'm just doing, rather than sitting back and going, okay, how can I spend maybe 3 or 4 hours improving this so it saves me 40 hours in the next 2 months, right?
Right. Yeah. And I mean, you sort of mentioned that in relation to playbooks too, right? It's just a matter of taking the time upfront to, and I think the reality of so many business leaders, and even people on the front line, right? Sales reps and marketers, they have their deadlines they need to meet and their quotas they need to obtain, and they're just running. And the reality is they could, using the same amount of energy, get much better results if someone would just take the time to pause, like you're saying, and reflect. And I think the example I always point to is in HubSpot, you track your sales with things we call deals. In some CRM systems are called opportunities. We call them deals. You have this deal pipeline that your deals move through. These are basically the stages of your sales process. And you set that up. Even if you've been in business a long time, I bet the first way you set up your deal pipeline will not be 100% perfect, right?
Yeah.
And if you let that data come in for a couple months, and then you look at some of those standard reports I'm talking about, you can see the conversion rate from one deal stage to the next. You can see the probability that a deal in any given stage is going to close. And if you would just take 10 minutes to feed that data back into the original deal stage design, now your forecasts are going to be much more accurate. Now your sales reps are going to have a much clearer process. Maybe there are steps you can remove, and that's extra work now that your sales reps don't have to do. But if you're not taking that moment to consider how can we improve what we're doing, what is the data telling us, and where do we go from here, you're going to be stuck getting the same results you've always got, instead of optimizing your process and getting to a better mode of working.
Yeah, I totally agree. One thing we see a lot is, well, hear and see, not a lot, but like hear and see it often from a, what do you want to put, the naysayers or people that have had bad experiences with HubSpot, is it's typically nearly 100% of the time a bad implementation, and people thinking that they can implement HubSpot and that's done. Like it's finished. Right.
Yeah.
And it's such a bad mindset to have, right? If you're going into a HubSpot implement, this applies just wider than HubSpot. It applies to any tool, any tech, but obviously we're discussing specifically HubSpot here. But if you're going into a HubSpot implementation with the idea that, okay, we're going to implement it with a partner, an agency, whoever we're doing it with, and we're just going to implement it and it's going to solve all of our problems and we're done. Thanks very much. We're finished. It's going to end up failing. And one of the biggest things we see is that people don't have internal champions taking HubSpot on to basically go, okay, we've implemented HubSpot. We're going to make the most out of it and we're going to make it work, which is one of the problems. So it just gets implemented and there's no idea of, as you said, using that data to self-improve, right? To improve the sales process, to improve certain things. And then it's like, well, we implemented HubSpot, and wasn't HubSpot meant to do that? Well, HubSpot's a tool, right? It's like gives you the framework in order to do that. And I'd like to get your comments on that. It's like, do you feel that's one of the key things as to where you see failed implementations? I know you're not working on the implementation side, but just from your feedback and hearing, your training and stuff, what do you see as one of the biggest risks or problems with people having those failed implementations or just not adopting the product?
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you're saying. I think a tool like HubSpot, but like you were saying, any tool, its primary function is going to be accelerating whatever process you have in place. And if it's a bad process or if it's leading you in the wrong direction, a tool will just accelerate you in that direction,
Yeah,
right?
100%.
And I think definitely during the implementation phase of HubSpot or any similar system, you should spend a lot of time at a whiteboard or a piece of paper or a lucid chart or whatever it is, defining the steps of your customer journey, right? Who is it that who is your ideal customer? Where do they come from? How do they hear about you? Once they hear about you, what makes them decide to buy from you in your sales process? What are the questions you need to ask? What are the things you need to figure out? If you take a look at your customers, the ones who are happiest with you, the ones who are going online and say, wow, everybody do business with this company because it's so good. What was their journey like? What did you do right during that marketing and sales process before they were a customer that made them such a happy customer? And then how did you deliver your product or service, whatever it is, in such a way that they were so happy, right? And then how do you replicate that, right? How do you get more people like that? And if you look at your worst customers, the ones who just complain all the time, the ones who are so unhappy and no matter what you do, you can't please them, where did they come from? How did they end up in your pipeline in the first place? Were there warning signs early on? I think so often businesses get in the mindset of any customer is a good customer. If you want to give me money, let's take it. And that's going to cause you problems, especially in the digital age. And so if you can figure some of this stuff out before you implement a tool like HubSpot, the tool is going to do you so much more good than it would have otherwise. And then the mindset you should have as you adopt, I would say HubSpot especially, is that HubSpot will take you as you are, but it won't leave you as you are, right? The whole point is to help you improve and grow better, right? So you spend that time whiteboarding or designing in whatever way your process, and you implement it as best you can in HubSpot according to your current understanding. But then look at those reports, talk to your reps, see what's working and what's not, and make little adjustments as time goes on. See if you can get little improvements in whatever metrics it is you want to measure, and constantly be updating and improving that process, because the process is never perfect. And if you ever get it to a state that's perfect, the world will change, and so then your process is irrelevant, right? And so never allowing it to just stay as it is, but always looking for ways to improve it. That's the mindset that's going to help any tool take you where you want to go. And I think HubSpot, because it's so broad and has so many pieces to it, has so many opportunities to take any business and improve whatever processes they have in place. But if you have the mindset of, oh, we just got to get our stuff in HubSpot and then we'll be done, everything will be fine. The world changes too fast for that sort of thinking to prevail. Your company has to be in a constant state of evolution, and HubSpot, I think, is a great tool to help with that. But it doesn't do the thinking for you, right?
Yeah.
Somewhere in your business, there's got to be someone who has an idea, has an opinion on what your company is trying to achieve, and then HubSpot will help you get there.
Yeah, totally agree. The most difficult implementations, or where we've had potential clients / clients, either potential clients that we've said no to working with because of the mindset, is that if you want to implement HubSpot and you want a partner or someone that works with you to do that, and you don't want to be challenged on your thinking, you don't want to try and improve a process, or you don't want to maybe look at it doing it a different way, it doesn't mean not listening to what your business needs, right? Or
Right.
your enterprise. That's not the point. It's more the fact that, okay, this is how you've never had a CRM, or you've had a terrible CRM, and this is what a good one looks like. So why would you take what you've been doing in the terrible CRM and bring it across to do it in this? Like, it doesn't make any sense. Yes, we need to get the essence of what the process is. That's not the point. But we've seen, so externally, so many failed implementations where companies have either come to us after the implementation has failed, they've been trying to push it for 6-12 months, and it was just simply doomed to fail from the start because of that very reason, or that we've turned away potential implementations because that's been the mindset. It's like, no, we just want to set it up exactly like this. We don't want to do any innovation. It's like, well, that's not what HubSpot's about. And HubSpot, yourselves talk about not trying to push the product on someone that's not a good fit, right? A business that's not a good fit, because what's going to end up happening, they're going to end up churning in 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, because if you don't have the innovation mindset, you aren't going, hey, we can improve, we need to adopt this, and we need to make our business not do only what HubSpot does. That's not the point, but it's a different way of thinking. And I've seen so many failed implementations, or people just achieving 5% of their potential, right? Because they simply will not have a change in mindset. And one of the biggest things about this is, especially when they bring in third-party data, right? When you're talking, okay, we've got our generic, or I call them generic, but straightforward integrations with kind of your main player systems. But when you start introducing kind of out there ERPs, out there other systems, fleet management systems, financial systems, tracking software, whatever it is, right? Other systems, and there's tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of tools out there nowadays, and every business has a different tech stack. But if that structure of that data is flawed from the start, it's flawed from the start, right? Like, it's like building on rocky foundations. And I just find it fascinating to a degree, and sometimes very frustrating as well, but trying to explain that how we set this up and how we implement this is going to be pivotal in 12 months' time. And if you ignore that, you're going to have problems. And when you have problems, you're going to have 20 times the amount of work to try and fix it, because you haven't thought of that at the start. I'd be interested on your comments on that.
Yeah, a metaphor comes to mind. I'm just making this up right now. I haven't had a very long to think through it. But just listening to you talk, it occurs to me that if someone is a bad driver, getting a new car isn't going to fix that problem, right? Yeah. Like, if you 100%. Have a driving record and you're just running into things all the time, the problem probably isn't your car, right? You could get a big truck, or you could get a sports car, or you could get whatever. And some cars are better than others for different things, right? If you're looking at towing capacity, or if you're looking at acceleration, or you're looking at top speed, or you're looking at fuel efficiency, whatever metric you care about, you can find cars that are better or worse at that thing. Yeah. But if you're a lousy driver, you're going to wreck all the time, right?
Absolutely.
And you can't blame the car for that, right? At a certain point, it's not the car's fault. And I don't mean to say, if HubSpot doesn't work for you, it's your fault. That would be the height of arrogance. And that is not the case at all. the point is that a CRM or a car or any tool is just a tool.
Yeah.
And at a certain point, you have to have a plan, and you have to know what you want the tool to do for you, and you have to be finding ways of improving your way of using the tool, if you're gonna get the maximum return on your investment in that tool.
Yeah, I totally agree, and it's super important. I want to come back to something that we discussed earlier, was around the product development of HubSpot, and again, it's something we discuss with clients and people that use HubSpot, and just in general as well, is that one of the biggest things I've always said and will continue to say, and I hope HubSpot never changes this, is that HubSpot releases features very quickly and very often. And again, it's like, it's one of the key reasons why it may not do everything perfectly as you want it. It may not, no tool ever does, right? That's it. There's no tool in the world that does everything perfectly for every single person, but you're constantly releasing new features. And it's something I value personally just for ourselves, is that there's always new things coming out. And it's not about releasing new features that are useless, because then they're useless to everyone, but they are impactful features. And how do you recommend? I don't necessarily, I suppose, want to talk. We both agree that HubSpot do that, right? If that makes sense. I suppose I don't want to talk about that, but I suppose, what's your advice to an internal champion or a company, like someone getting overwhelmed, firstly with like, okay, I want to start the HubSpot journey, etc. But then that, once we've addressed that first bit, the second bit is like, how do I stay on top of those updates? How do I make sure I'm at the cutting edge of what HubSpot's doing, and bringing that return for the organization?
Yeah. It's interesting to think about it in two different stages. You mentioned people who are just starting their HubSpot journey. My gut reaction to that, you can tell me I'm crazy, but I think if you're just getting implemented on HubSpot right now, maybe ignore the updates for a little bit.
Yeah,
right? Just
100%.
get set up, get your feet under you. And once you have HubSpot going, then it's time to pay attention to the updates to make sure you're getting the most out of your subscription, the new features you wanted, you're not missing, right? But yeah, absolutely. HubSpot is a moving target. And if you're trying to learn it, just focus on learning it, right? Don't worry about the latest, newest thing. There will be time for that later. But for anyone who is an established HubSpot customer, you have, I think, kind of two main options. One is inside your HubSpot account, there is a section called product updates. And if you're, the admin or the owner of HubSpot at your company, I definitely think you should be checking that, probably daily, but certainly at least once a week. Just put a reminder on your calendar, go look through, see what it is. It'll be filtered to match your current subscription, so you'll just see the updates that impact you. The reality is most people don't do that. It's a lot to try to remember. Like, everybody's busy. I don't blame anyone for not staying on top of HubSpot updates. I've built a career on telling people about HubSpot updates, and I have trouble keeping up, right? And so honestly, if you're feeling that pain, I love HubSpot, I'm here, but I just can't stay on top of all these updates. I'm so overwhelmed. Come find me on LinkedIn. I'm talking about them every day. I recently started doing what I call the Monday morning briefing, and once a week, I just talked through literally every update that came out the previous week. And I'm there, LinkedIn Live, answering questions anyone has. I'm trying to make it as easy as possible for people to stay on top of it, because I agree with you. I think this is a powerful thing about HubSpot. I think it would be very sad if HubSpot said, okay, we've got your feedback that you're overwhelmed. We're going to start packaging these updates together and releasing them once a quarter or once a month. And I don't think that would solve the problem. I don't think our engineering teams would slow down at all. And then once a month, you would have to digest 80 updates all at once, right? And so I think we're going to stay with this process of the ever-flowing river of HubSpot updates. And I will just keep doing everything I can to help people stay on top of them.
Yeah, no, it's awesome, and keep doing what you're doing, because the content's great. But just on that, and just from when we're talking from a software development point of view and from a product point of view, is this is getting a bit more technical, but getting the features out to the market, the quicker you can iterate, the quicker you can improve, and the quicker the feedback comes in, right? If you wait for, and this is, we're getting a bit off topic here, aside from HubSpot, I agree. I totally agree with the strategy, is that for anyone listening that is building a product, and whether it has anything to do with marketing, CRM, or anything in general, you can learn from how HubSpot releases features at scale is the fact that the quicker you get it into the market, the quicker you get feedback, the quicker you can improve on it. Now, it's not just around releasing something that's crap or bad.
Right.
It's got to be at an acceptable level, but I certainly agree, and I think it would be a big shame if that was to change. I think it's something that differentiates HubSpot, and even how the updates are released. I think it's massive. I would like to touch off on whether or not you've got anything that you can share, maybe broadly, but as to some things that potentially are coming up this year, or any features that we can be excited about, or any inside knowledge that you have that you may be able to share.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, it is kind of end of first quarter 2024 here. If anyone's listening in the far distant future to this recording, would love to hear how accurate these predictions are. I think 2024, HubSpot, like all companies, you will continue to hear a lot about AI. We are adding artificial intelligence to as many parts of our platform as we can. In general, these are not net new features. We're just trying to help you have a better experience in the features that already exist, right? So you're creating a blog post or a social post or a website page or an email template for your sales reps or whatever it is. You're going to see more and more AI availability to help you do that faster and better. We've released a lot already in 2024. I think there's a whole lot more coming. The other thing I recommend everyone keep an eye on is we recently acquired this company Clearbit, which is sort of data customer intelligence
I
stuff.
love Clearbit.
And I would definitely keep an eye out for what happens with that. We've mentioned data sync in this interview already. There was a company called PySync that we acquired. It was a HubSpot. As I said, we generally just build things. We very rarely acquire companies, but we acquired PySync, and we didn't just plug it into HubSpot. We took the team that built it and had them rebuild it inside of HubSpot. Now we have data sync, which is fully embedded inside of HubSpot, has all that real-time two-way sync power that PySync had, but is now focused on connecting HubSpot to other systems. I expect a similar story to play out with Clearbit. I think this year you will start hearing things about like, yes, this Clearbit magic that used to just exist as an independent tool is now deeply embedded inside of HubSpot and enables you to do. I mean, You imagine you like Clearbit. Anyone who uses Clearbit is probably already speculating on what HubSpot will be able to do. I myself don't know the details of how or when that will play out, but definitely watch that space. And I would say probably sometime 2024, we launch some pretty cool stuff related to that.
Oh, I can't wait. I'm pumped for that. We've got a lot of content on our website about Clearbit. I think if you actually search what is Clearbit, aside from Clearbit, we're the actual top ranked article for
nice.
that.
That's awesome.
It's I just love how powerful it is for businesses that want to get that data at scale. Obviously, their IP tracking as well as their enriching, etc. If you can take what Clearbit was and still is at the moment, obviously, as a product, but bring that into HubSpot with even just all the same within Clearbit into HubSpot, add automation on top of that. Wow. Yeah, I think we're into a very, very interesting space. Now, some people listening may say, oh, Clearbit already integrated with HubSpot, etc., which it did. But it's a completely different experience having it inside of the product. Yeah. And no doubt it will be eventually, hopefully, I know you don't know this, but I'm hoping eventually, speculating here as we discussed, was eventually that it gets to the point where it's automated, like within automations and things like that there in regards to, enriching certain things, triggering certain things, etc. Hope that maybe Clearbit's website visitors IP replaces HubSpot's one because it's a lot more accurate.
and I would say for as long as I've been at HubSpot, some of the hardest, most critical feedback we've gotten is around our enrichment, right? It is, if you are in the United States and you are targeting huge enterprise companies like Apple and Boeing, right? Our enrichment tools are great. They're totally accurate. That publicly available information for those public companies is fantastic. But if you are targeting smaller businesses, or if you are located anywhere outside the United States, word on the street is it's just not great, right? But
Yeah,
Clearbit is awesome,
I feel
right?
the
And
pain.
so I think yes, that is my hope too. And you mentioned automation and some other things. That is the beauty of HubSpot being a fully, crafted, built from the ground up single system, right? It is not the case that we're going to integrate we're going to take the Clearbit code and drop it into the CRM, and man, it's too bad that it can't bridge the divides and the code bases to get into marketing or to get into automation or get into reporting. No, it's one code base, and so once Clearbit is in there, it'll improve all the different pieces of HubSpot, and that is very exciting.
Yeah, totally. I'm pumped for it. I can't wait for it to be done, or just to follow the release schedule and how it gets done. I'm watching very closely on that. I suppose to sum up our conversation, etc., and how I look at HubSpot is, to summarize it for anyone listening, is you should be treating it as a holistic warehouse or a holistic view of all your customer data that enables personalization at scale. Essentially, whether that personalization is automated or manual through a human, it doesn't matter. It's personalization at scale. And Kyle, you obviously gave those examples earlier. You're doing a credit card application or a bank application or something. It may still be through a human, but the data is there at scale, and the systems, the frameworks, everything is there. So if it's automated or it's a manual process, it's still giving us that framework. And one of the key parts to that is having all your business apps or tech talking to each other and pushing into HubSpot as the hub, and making sure that data is clean. So I thank you for your time. We just want to get into a finale segment that we do. Just ask a couple of questions, and go through this and get your thoughts on it. So the first question is, what's one thing you believe businesses are not paying enough attention to right now that will be critical in the next 5 years?
Yeah, so everybody's talking about AI. I even talked about AI on the. I think people are not thinking enough about just good old fashioned human intelligence, right? The real power of AI is helping the people at your business work more efficiently, offloading a lot of those mundane tasks so that they can do the creative or strategic or whatever sorts of things it is they do that humans are uniquely good at doing, right?
Yeah.
That AI can't do. And I worry that when people say things like, oh, AI is going to put content marketers out of a job, no, that means you're thinking about AI the wrong way, because I have definitely already read some websites and blog posts that were clearly just pumped out by ChatGPT without a human even proofreading them. And it was a bad experience for me, right? And so we absolutely use AI to proofread or to generate ideas or to be your buddy to bounce ideas off of, right? But don't undervalue the power that a creative or strategic thinking human being brings. And I think in the next 5 years, you're going to be able to tell the difference between the companies that went all in on AI and now everything they produce is just AI, versus the companies that used AI to help their humans perform better.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and I've been quite vocal about this as well. I see a lot of use cases for AI, and I think it's extremely, well, we know it's extremely powerful. It's only going to get better, and at the speed it's getting better is ridiculous, right? As in, people, especially people that aren't in our industry, like our industry is like at the forefront of it, if that makes sense. It's kind of like, so people that aren't familiar with that, I can understand somewhat how it's scary, but there's things that it does really well and there's other things it doesn't do well. And if people think that it's going to, like, humans are human, right? No matter how good artificial intelligence gets, one of the points I bring up as well is that if people feel duped into believing it's a human and then find out after, that's one of the worst experiences. Right? And people don't often talk about this. It's going to be one of the worst. They're going to be like, I thought I was having a conversation with a human. And then you're like, well, that's just fake. And then other people argue, well, no, it doesn't matter if it's so. It's an interesting space. It's one that I watch, but I don't disagree. There's going to be a lot of companies, I feel, that are going to go so far into AI that they'll lose that human touch, and we're not going to have AI dealing with AI in businesses at any point in the near future. Anyway, let's put it that way.
Yeah, I would love to see, and I'm not currently seeing this, but I hope to see a bigger emphasis on in-person interactions, because that is the thing. where it's not fake,
Yeah.
right? Like if we can shake hands and sit next to each other and have a conversation, you now know that you are connecting with a human being. And as artificially generated video and audio just gets more and more convincing and really remarkable.
Yeah.
I wonder. I hope we as humans will start valuing that in-person piece more, because that is we own the real world still, right? AI will dominate the digital world, but we out here in breathing the air and walking on the ground. It'll be centuries before AI is really there.
Yeah, no, I understand. I think one of the key things, well, I'd say to people as well, and one of my things is, once everyone has access to something, it's the status quo. It's no longer creative. Like, and yes, okay, the models will improve, and you might be able to train the models on your own data and stuff like that there. But in essence, let's just take that away and say at a broad sense, if the models are available to everyone, it's available to everyone, right? There's no intellectual property there, right?
Yeah.
It's okay. You want to do that piece of content. Okay, your competitor does it 2 days later and they get the same thing, or they want to do the campaign, or they get it's just a different, it's a different, they say it a different way or whatever else it is. But once it's the status quo, it's the status quo. And that's what I think people are kind of missing, is that if everyone has access to it, what are you going to do differently?
Right.
Anyway, we won't get hung up on that.
Somehow.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. So the next one is, what legacy do you want to leave in your industry? How do you hope your work will influence or shape the future?
Yeah, so something I think that HubSpot does remarkably well, and I can't quite figure out how they do it, is our ecosystem, whether that's HubSpot employees or partners or customers or developers or whoever it is just a really friendly place. Anytime you go to a HubSpot event, you're going to find really enthusiastic, nice people who are happy to talk and want to dream big about the way they can change things. And I love being a part of that. And if there's any anything I can add to that legacy individually around just being helpful and being enthusiastic and being excited for the future, I am trying to just expand and grow that as much as possible.
Awesome. The final one is, if you could go back in time, what advice would you give to your younger self at the start of your career?
Yeah, so this one's really interesting. A bit of a story. When I was, I don't know, 19 years old, I was having dinner at a friend's house, and I was in a phase of life where I was trying to figure out, okay, I'm an adult now. What's my career going to be? And I asked the man of the house what he did for work. I was just asking every grown up I met, what do you do for work, and how did you get into that? And he told me that he worked at the corporate offices of a national grocery store chain, and he drew schematics of one particular brand of snack cakes, the schematics for shelf layouts, right? He would get marketing information. He would decide which product went at eye level, which one went down near the floor, how many inches of shelf space each product got. And I had this moment of realization of, that's not what you wanted to do when you were a kid, right? When you're like, someday I'm going to grow up, and it was not like, when I grow up, I'm going to draw schematics of Hostess cake products nationally for Albertsons grocery stores, right? That's not. And so I asked him how he got into it, and he said, well, one thing led to another. And as I talked to people about their careers, I realized one thing led to another an awful lot. And people ended up in places they were really happy. And so then, as a 19 or 20-year-old young man, I just decided I was going to keep myself open to one thing leading to another, right? I would have goals, I would make plans, but I would always keep myself open to opportunities I didn't expect. And I said to myself at that age, and one thing will lead to another, and someday I'll land in a job I love that I didn't know existed today. And that has happened. Here I am. The job I have didn't exist when I was 19 years old, right? And I think that I mean, going back in time, I don't think I would change a thing, because I'm happy with where it ended up. But if I went back in time and had a conversation with 19 or 20-year-old Kyle, I'd be like, you're onto something there. Hold on to that. Yes. Because I think a lot of times we as people, whether it's in our career or any aspect of our life, we say, here I am at point A, I got to get to point B, and I'm just going to hold the course, right? And
Yeah.
actually, all sorts of wonderful opportunities are opening up to you if you're willing to get off that path and explore something new.
No, that's awesome. Great advice. I appreciate that. Well, a special thanks to you, Kyle, for joining us today. We've covered a lot about HubSpot, the future of the HubSpot training academy, everything that you're doing there. And I think there's some great insights, some great knowledge for the listeners as well. For any other content related to HubSpot and everything else, you can go over to the Learning Center at intuji.com. Check it out there as well. Once again, Kyle, thank you very much for joining us. It was a great conversation, and no doubt we'll catch up again and we'll have you on. So appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you.